African young, hemp and cannabis growers. I'll share a bit of an interesting story that African people will embrace and be proud of. South Africa has been called by New Zealand to come and assist the community in Gisborne to build houses after the disaster that happened through tsunami and the flooding, to build houses using hemp stock. And South Africa was nominated to be the designer of the model of the house. And the mayor in the Gisborne community signed the agreement, and we're just waiting for South Africa to endorse. And hemp growers in South Africa to support with raw material so that we can help the New Zealand, to revive and make sure that their community are living in harmony with whatever they have, because they only have a cannabis company that is now functioning and then selling some oils, but they didn't know that you can even use hemp fiber and hemp stock for industrial purposes. So South Africa brought that forward. And one of my colleagues was in New Zealand for the past 3 weeks. He came back home on the 14th of November, and he shared the good story that we sent him to implement in Gisborne. And the other thing that I can share, Chair, with the hemp industrialization in South Africa, we have a huge offtake of supplying African Hemp Consortium of South Africa with fiber and stock for 3 things. For making hempcrete, I presented this to the Presidential Commission last year at the Indalo Green Inclusive Symposium, where our company won an award. The first black youth-owned company on cannabis that was funded by a bank, Nedbank. So they called me to come and present what can be done with hemp fiber, hemp stock, except the flower for recreational use for smoking. That's the last thing that we can focus on, because we need to have cars. The automotive industry must look into this thing of using hemp to manufacture cars. And the construction industry must look into this opportunity of creating houses from hempcrete. And also the textile industry. We can't be always fooled by China to say we are the big gurus of manufacturing into textile, while African people have, plants that can weave wool, plants that can be, used for textile material. So these are the things that I can share now. And I'm into community of practice. I'm doing this on a daily basis. In Northwest, we developed a seed multiplication program for the hemp industrialization. And the Northwest government in agriculture endorsed it and wrote a memorandum that we must assist the government with the growth strategy of hemp industrialization in the country. There will be a manufacturing plant in Northwest next to the Mafikeng Old Airport. That company is from Australia. They're here to help South Africans to manufacture cars from hemp stock. Last week on the 11th, we received our final report from the CSIR on research and development using hemp to manufacture chicken feed. And it's been approved, and you're gonna see it in the market soon, where chickens will eat nutritional food from hemp. The very same plant that they say it's a bad plant, there's illicit trade. And I also challenged the Land Bank about it before. And they said to me, young man, this is a topic for another day. And I'm glad when I visited the Land Bank again, they told me that they already developed a strategy that speaks with hemp industrialization only, not medicine. So I'm glad, because even the jacket that I'm wearing now, it's made from hemp. And I've got a beautiful lady that I work with who innovated teas from hemp waste. The teas are for wellness, to help with certain ailments, to keep you calm if you're already, you are the person who always, stressful and you can have a cup of tea. and then enjoy your tea. It will keep you calm. It doesn't make you high because there's a low THC there, 0.2 low THC. So this is what I can share with the African people, that this thing of cannabis is there, and it's viable. And let's take an advantage of this miracle plant. And to add on the agro-tourism, we have cannabis tourism. People are coming to South Africa, coming to Africa just to see cannabis farms. They are tired of winery farms. They want to see cannabis farms. They enjoy the smell of the cannabis plant. And they enjoy the stories that African people tell. The Lesotho is the first African, country to commercialize and legalize cannabis. Zimbabwe is the second African country to commercialize hemp. And South Africa is coming, and we're coming hard because we are innovators and we want to use the plant for a good cause and remove the stigma that cannabis is something that, can help the society. I'm going to give a bit short about prisoners. There are other prisoners who were arrested because of being in possession of cannabis. They didn't do crime. They didn't kill anyone. They didn't rape anyone. But they were moving the plant for African people to enjoy it. Because cannabis is being used by the elders for wisdom. In a traditional context, we used to do rituals from cannabis. And now you African people, you try to shy away from your beautiful plant and say, this is a wrong plant. And you want to embrace umhlonyane because Madagascar says umhlonyane can treat respiratory problems. You've been having umhlonyane for many, many, many years. Even in livestock, in agriculture, our grandparents used to disinfect livestock using umhlonyane, which is lengana. So lastly, I would say, in Setswana, rutang banadi taola, listen na tsoba dimu. I'm saying in English, transfer the knowledge as the elders and the wisdom to the young ones before you go to the grave. Thank you.
We talked about the pharmacy. I thought we also had a good historical context, which was very, very important. Now let's understand how agriculture can open our minds with tourism opportunities.
Thank you so much, Program Director. Maybe from the offset, may I hasten to indicate that as human beings, we are products of agriculture. We came from the soil. So therefore, we need to really appreciate and embrace. Agriculture is not a stand-alone entity. It is part of the value chain of tourism. You have alluded that there is no tourism without food. There is no tourism without agriculture. And it is one of the backbone. It is unfortunate in Africa, with so much land that we have. As we were discussing, we picked up that the challenges that we have, we're crying about climate change and the changing of seasons. The reason why our lands have so much grown to the extent that we need to to contaminate it with fertilizer and so forth, it is because of the very same mechanisms that were introduced to us by those who thought that they were more civilized. So it is high time for Africa to stand up. When you land at Riyadh Airport, it is a desert. And because of their creativity, these guys, they've created a landmark, a vegetation. And here we are in Africa, priding ourselves with so much land. By the way, when we talk of agriculture, let's not confine ourselves in Lesotho. Let's not confine ourselves within the borders of South Africa. Let's go beyond. We are talking about the Africa that we want to build. God has really given us so much in this beautiful continent to the extent that we need to start to appreciate. My brother has actually touched a very fundamental issue. that it's easy for us to appreciate your tablets from the chemist and shun away from that was created to make sure that it regenerates our bodies. Let us go back to Eden. Let's appreciate. And by the way, statistically, when you look at those who have lived longer than anyone else, they are vegetarians. They are vegetarians who appreciate what comes from the ground. Unfortunately, simply because we don't have so much confidence in ourselves, we think that the best comes from Europe, the best comes from Asia. When they tell us, no, it's your food is not good enough for you, we follow suit. So it is high time for us to start to appreciate and also pleading with our institutions of learning. They must go back to the basics and start teaching agriculture as a compulsory from the primary level to the highest institutions, so that we start to appreciate agriculture is not for Buddhas. Agriculture is us, Africans. That's where our forefathers, they appreciated agriculture. That's why they lived longer. So within the framework of tourism, we are saying we need to appreciate agriculture, agritourism. It is one of the vehicles that will definitely drive our economies. Let's go back to basics. Let's appreciate what comes from the ground, because we came from the ground.
Thank you very much. Clearly, we are all resonating around the fact that agriculture is pretty much at the cornerstone of everything that we need to do. Chair, would you like to add to this and take us further?
Thank you very much, But Andrew. It is indeed an exciting moment for me. I mean, looking back on the turnaround strategy that you and myself did at the Land Bank, and now I'm here again sitting in a panel that is moderated by you as an economist, particularly focusing on agriculture. There is a young person who also benefited from our programs that we did at the Land Bank, and Katleho, and I'm humbled and honored that we have really raised a leader on who Katleho is today, because that's what leaders do. We need to leave a legacy behind so that we can showcase as Africans, what is this excellency that we're talking about? The future is not tomorrow for young people. The future is now. Look at Katleho. I can sit down and fold my arms and keep quiet because he's already leading me. There are certain things that I didn't know about hemp, but he's actually engaging on critical, important topics. And also when we say, let us build the Africa that we want through an agri-business sector. But Andrew, you know that as a farmer as well. Money is not in the produce. Money is in the value chain. Produce and make sure that the product, when it takes off from your farm, it's actually taking off canned. If you are actually a farmer that is dealing with tomatoes, make a tomato sauce out of it. That's where value is. Export from your farm. You know, today I'd like to celebrate our late Dr. Vuyo Mahlati. You know, Dr. Vuyo Mahlati came up, the founder of AFASA, came up with a very powerful strategy in the Eastern Cape with the farmers in wool. She created a fabric that was produced in a farm that was exported from the farm to Europe. She had already had product. So for us as in global value chains, we need to actually be creative and create that product where we say we are ready to take it off from the farm, but it should be canned from the farm. That's where money is, Babu Ukatbeth, when we're talking about agriculture, agritourism. You know, about 10 years ago, I was in Antalya, in Turkey. Antalya is a province for tourists in Turkey. In the hotel is surrounded by farms. You actually take the vegetables, you get fresh, fruits in the morning. You get fresh vegetables in the morning before you eat anything. So you smell that fresh produce. You smell that fresh product. And I think we need to actually look at these models as Africa in terms of building a real agritourism strategy that speaks to the produce. By the way, their products are organic. And that's where we need to actually start. And there's nothing impossible with us in Africa. We've got a lot of arable land. But today, that arable land is lying fallow. And we're still hungry. And there's food insecurity. There's something wrong that you're doing. That we must correct that narrative today to say, let us go back to the fields, to those fields that are lying fallow. And teach, I think for me, moderator, it's a mentality issue. Because you can't go and spend money and buy vegetables on credit at Woolworths. And yet, you've got a garden. So that's a mentality issue that we need to change as Africans. That let's go and produce our own products. A little garden in your backyard. We used to call it one village, one product. In South Africa, we've driven that initiative where we encourage communities to have a garden so that they don't sleep hungry, so that they don't expect government to deliver food onto their table. Because we need to actually have a society that is productive, a society in Africa that really doesn't rely on government, doesn't rely on donations, so that they'll be able to produce for themselves, produce for the community, and at the end of the day, they take it to global markets through a value chain system. Thank you.
You can feel the passion, can't you? We don't talk about the stats. The stats are damning. As we talk today, in Europe, there is no more land for agriculture. In fact, the governments in Europe pay farmers to stay in production. Pay them to stay in production. Yet, as the chair says, we give the land away for free. We are the only people that I know of in the world who give land away for free. It's not free. It's freedom. Your own freedom is hinging on the land. So how do you give it away? What the statistics tell us that 60% of all new arable land in the world is in Africa. So when we are saying we need to invest in that 60% because the rest of the world is going to need Africa. So this kind of platform should now be saying, how do we develop all the verticals that we need for agriculture? And we must start the vertical. So South Africa just did the AMAP. Now we must say, what is Africa's AMAP? The AMAP for cannabis is this. The AMAP for grain is this. The AMAP for livestock is this. So each vertical must be fully integrated. And it can't be for South Africa alone. It can't be for Egypt alone. It has to be for the whole continent. Yeah. When we talk about Africa Free Trade Area, it must talk to these verticals. We can't do it outside. So that's one thing. When we say Africa is rich in land, so I talked about 60% of the land sits in Africa. There's a funny study. You guys know a country called Sudan. I don't know if there's anybody from Sudan. You wouldn't believe me if I told you that 20% of all the livestock, cattle in Africa sits in Sudan. But Sudan doesn't export the cattle. They're just roaming there, up and down, up and down. So what is the other lesson that we must learn about investment? Investment must bring you a return. It must bring you a return which basically says that you can develop. So we need to be saying, Sudan, how do we help you to develop your cattle? How do we add value to your cattle? And your cattle should not be a commodity. You don't, and I mean, this is one of our problems. We are sending live animals to Saudi Arabia. Yes, I understand they say it's a religious thing. But what value do you get when you send a live animal? Why can't you send a finished product? Cut it up into steaks. Cut it up into biltong bites. Cut it up into, just biltong, as you all know. You go into a shop right now, biltong, which is the ugliest piece of meat on a cow. People actually forget about it. It's the ugliest piece of meat on a cow. But it's the most expensive piece of meat on a cow. How does that work? They've just added salt and put it in the sun to dry. So again, it's mentality. How do we understand things? How do we understand value? And there's no value when your product is a commodity. There's only value when your product is a value-added products. Colleagues, I'm going to open up the floor for if there are any questions. Then I'm going to allow you all to say, but I think you want to say something. You're
intrigued. In 2050, we are told that most of the food that will be coming out of Africa will be artificial food. From your meat, from your vegetables. So there is a necessity for us to stand up. Malawi, Tanzania, they produce the best rice, tea, and coffee. We have been so much brainwashed to the extent that we always think that the best is from Europe. It pains my heart. When I travel, I normally carry my bags of rooibos tea in my suitcase. And some of my colleagues, when we're having breakfast, what are you going to drink? Can I have English tea? You get my point. Colleagues, God has given us so much wisdom, so much land. I don't know whoever bewitched our African brothers and sisters. That person died long time ago. And no one can reverse that mentality. It's all up in our minds. It is high time to appreciate what God has given us. We have the best land, as you are talking about land. You go to UK, they don't have land. They even appreciate our ordinary two-roomed houses in Africa because you have your space where you can plant vegetables. But we are not doing that. So I think this conversation should ignite something in us so that each and every one of us, let's go back. Go back to the basics. Go back to Eden. Let's plant our small vegetables. And by the way, organic, they are medicine in your body. Especially to us who eat meat. It is time to detox. You can only do so by indulging in pure organic stuff, vegetables.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. I want to share something before I leave. I'll be selfish if I don't share. African people, you've got your own African traditional medicines, which is indigenous plants, that you all grew up eating, all grew up having family remedy in the household. Your grandmother, doing a tincture for you to heal certain ailments or treat certain ailments. And me, I'm an African child. I don't take Western medicine. Even my partner knows that. I can get sick, but I will need THC to be in my body so that I can be well. Or other traditional medicine. So some of you saw a table outside with cosmetics there. Those cosmetics were made from African traditional medicines. And we call it bioprospecting. Some are biochemists, some are biotechnologists, but they don't really think and become innovative that we can use our own biological resources that come from Africa to develop our own African products that can be sold amongst African people. Let's not depend in Europe. They take our raw material from Africa, process it into final products, bring it back to us as African people at an expensive price, and we buy because we don't even know who we are anymore. Yes, and you people, you are running away from indigenous knowledge systems. Indigenous ways of knowing works, people. Believe in it. You are a black melanin, and you depend on African traditional medicine to survive, not Western medicine. Because they take your traditional medicine, add chemical compounds in it, bring it back to you so that they can minimize the society. So I'm pledging that I'm available. Those who want to learn and explore how to get medicinal properties from an indigenous plants of South Africa or from Ghana, from anywhere in Africa, we can assist you because we signed an ethics application with the University of Pretoria to explore the properties that can be used to develop food, medicine, and other pharmaceutical products. So our ethics application has been approved. We're going to embark on a study using cannabis for skin cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer. And also the tea from cannabis is going to be something amazing in future. So I'm sharing with you, and I'm glad Innovation Hub is part of my SME. They will see the results. And Land Bank is going to be supporting us soon, so they will see the results. As I mentioned, I'm in a community of practice. I don't just talk. These things, I'm doing them. And I said to myself, I want to transform from being a farmer to be a pharmacist. So just think, I'm giving you a thought or how. And I gave you something that you have in an African land. Traditional medicines, edible fruits. I mentioned to Mhlonyani just here, Lengana, wormwood. You were fascinated during COVID when you see Madagascar coming out. But your grandparents have been giving you wormwood mixed with cannabis for cough, for bronchitis, for what? And you are now fine, you are a grown-up man, you are a grown-up woman, but today, some of you were buying Echina Force. Let me share something that is amazing. Echina Force, you know Echina Force, right? During COVID, you're buying it. Do you know that is made from a traditional medicinal plant that grows in your gardens? I met with Echina Force company, Avogel. They manufacture Echina Force, and they want to collaborate with this young man and my partner to white label some of our products, and also for us to add some active ingredients in the Echina Force products. Capsules, powder, it's for flu, it's for immune boosting. And I was shocked. I was like, Avogel, really? It's bigger than Clicks. It's bigger than this camp. And then they came to us and say, hey, this is phytomedicine, and we call these products complementary medicines. And I said, no, our African medicines come first. Your Western medicine is complementary medicine because you're complementing what Africa had. So don't call any herbal medicine a complementary medicine. It's the original medicine. So thank you.
Moderate. I just want to elaborate further on what Katleho is saying. Indigenous knowledge management systems, it's one of the most powerful tools that will actually make us to understand ourselves as Africans. Because that would actually get rid of the identity crisis that we have at the moment. And why I'm saying it, because the Africa Forum, which is the forum of former heads of state and government in Africa, they've partnered with UKZN to really focus and drive this narrative of indigenous knowledge management systems in Africa, and how do we take back the Africa that we want and back into the roots and start introducing that indigenous knowledge management systems for the generations to come, and also leave a legacy behind. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take 3 questions, but I think, there are 5 questions, that's fine. But just 2 comments early, and I'll repeat it. Farmer, pharmacist. All farmers are pharmacists. You must just watch them when they prepare their lands and when they know what they must mix to feed an animal, what they must mix to feed the soil, what they must mix to feed. It's all pharmacy. So, Katlo, you're 100% right. Then I'm just going to tease you on the last one. We talked about organic. Which is the best meat in Africa? It's organic beef from Namibia and Botswana. They don't get fed lot like we do here. They breed and are raised on the land. What is the best lamb in Africa? It's Karoo. They don't feed lot Karoo lambs. So this whole notion that things must go through some form of processing before you put them in your stomach is absolutely wrong. Let's go organic. Let's stay natural. I'm going to start. Ladies first. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the panel. I think a lot of great things have been said. Katlego, you know, we are proud of you and really looking forward to doing more great things. And I think just for the interest of everyone is that we are doing work in terms of, indigenous knowledge systems. So we've partnered with the University of the Free State. So we've got a leg that is actually looking exactly into that. How do we look at what we have and how do we then commercialize it? And then I think in terms of, just some of the points that you've mentioned around, I think the saying was, a hungry nation will always fight against itself. And truly how important agriculture and food sustainability is just to human existence. Because I like the fact that you even touched on the Garden of Eden, how we need to actually go back. Because if you look at how humanity fell, it started with the stomach, right? It was a hunger problem. And even today, our problems always start with a hunger problem, because the reason somebody is breaking into somebody else's house is hoping that they're going to find something they can sell and then eat. So if we can really, I think as a nation, focus on getting as many people into agriculture as possible, because it's not just for certain people, which I completely agree with you that it needs to be incorporated, once again, Dr. Zindi, into the education part, that from grassroots all the way, up to university level, it should be compulsory, because if people are self-sustaining, they know how to grow food themselves, they're going to have a different mentality. And it affects a lot of things. Crime would go down. Secondly, even the issue of urbanization. The reason people they remove themselves from the rural areas where there's clean air, plenty of land, no crime, and they come and squash themselves like sardines in places in Johannesburg, because they think the city lights are going to provide food for them, and that doesn't happen. So it would get people to just be where they are, back in the rural. We can actually plant more investment in the rural, that people don't need to create the influx, because then the influx erodes the infrastructure, and then again we're talking about how our infrastructure is not, we are not maintaining it. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good points that you are raising. But there's a point you mentioned that there's a problem that young people or people are not going into agriculture. And this is what I've picked up when I watch television. What actually happens, on SABC, they will play a program of agriculture 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. And that's very strategic. Because most of the guys on Saturday were drinking. So they will never watch TV at 6 o'clock. And those who wake up early on Sunday are going to church. So they don't have time for TV. So they can't see it. And then there's a channel which is in Afrikaans called CakeNet. Go and watch it on Saturday, around about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. They show commercial farming. Serious commercial farming. It's hidden because it's in Afrikaans. Lucky, I speak all languages. I watch it. And the one that is on SABC shows farmers that look suffering. So what it does, it plants a seed in the minds of the young people that agriculture is suffering. And I'll make an example now. My son is doing first year at Stellenbosch University. He's doing agriculture economics. I sat down with him, we talked about it, and he's doing agriculture economics with food. So now, in his class, those who do his specialized subjects, there are 35, like 28 in the class. The rest of other courses, they fill the auditorium as if they are attending a festival or something. There are many. But there are very few. And the secret is very simple. Media portrays agriculture as something which has to do with poverty. Now, this forum sitting here, there has to be a channel that you do. A 1 hour channel on television at prime, like 6:30. And then when you have that channel, you talk about agriculture from the start to finish, so that people can see that this thing is key. When I was doing non-degree at Stellenbosch, at Pretoria University, agriculture economics as well, my lecturer told me that the class is too full. And we were 16 in the class. He says the class is too full. I didn't understand. And then I realized that very few people do agriculture. Very few. And this is strategic. It's done by media so that people will do other courses so that agriculture will remain controlled and managed by people who used to manage it long ago. I will stop there. Thank you.
But Andrew,
I know you want to speak. Let me just make a comment about this 6:30 thing. So for my sins, we were once quite integrally involved with trying to change that slot at SABC. We failed miserably. They were refusing. They said, nobody is interested in this thing. Black people don't watch this thing, so don't even try to move it. Bafuni Mvango, and they want to watch all these other things. So we lost that battle. But the point you're making, and it is critical, if you don't make agriculture on prime spot, it won't succeed. What this panel needs to do, which is really the thing that some of us have been doing, you need to see black multi-millionaires coming out of agriculture. Because what inspires young people is success. Young people are inspired by success. When they say Patrice Motsepe, they think, mining. So you need to say, when you say, and it's actually interesting. I'm going to make another funny little step. There's some very serious, rich black people in agriculture who nobody knows about. And we have been challenging them, please step up and say that you are in agriculture. The former chairman of Nedbank, Dr. Ruel Khoza. People don't know that Dr. Ruel Khoza is in the top 5 largest avocado producers in South Africa. Top 5 agriculture producers, avocado producers in South Africa. All his produce basically is for the export market. There is a young black doctor in the Northwest. He's actually a medical doctor, but he's into breeding animals. Obake. He has produced stud breeds that are championship winning studs in South Africa. One of them went and fetched something like 700,000 rand for a bull recently. Now the problem is, like we're saying, we are not accelerating and we are not emphasizing these successes. So you're 100% correct.
Okay, so to respond to the question or the comment about farming programs or agriculture programs being on television is because I'm in the TV space. I used to be a television producer and I went private and I started owning my own thing. So there isn't enough funding to have the TV program on TV at the certain time slot. So we need to find sponsors who will fund, like me, a person like me, to produce the show. And it can be at a certain time slot. But because the SABC doesn't have money to create the content to be on at a certain time slot, we need funded programs. So they're called AFPs. So you need to go out in industry and find money so that I'm paid, the crew's paid, the editor's paid, and it's on TV, but it's a funded program. So the SABC, that's the challenge, right? And then the other thing is, you're right when you say the media and the Department of Education is not really formulating careers and saying don't go to the commercial careers, right? Go to the careers that are future careers. The Department of Communications wrote a paper about the future careers, especially in, artificial intelligence. And are your kids going to study some of those future careers? Because there's no point in being a lawyer, but being a commercial lawyer, you know? There's so many of those people. Why can't you be in sustainability? You know, we're going into trying to save the world. Go into being a sustainability expert, lawyer. Go into agriculture. So I think the mindset and us wanting to be like other people, I think that's the problem, where we need to say to our kids, study something different, go out the box. You know, that's the other point. And then with the hemp, sir, how do we find ways to include the marginalized people, the black people, in that space? You know, because the gatekeeping is that a lot of this that we're talking is controlled by, you know. So our government needs to find ways to include us, because we do want to do all of those things, but it's being controlled by a certain number of people.
Thank you. You must name them. Who are those people? Kiboma, let's know who they are.
Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Gilem Teto, and I just have got two, it's a comment and it's a question. I am by default a mother to a student who is studying agriculture, so that's how I got to be interested. So I had to sit here the whole time because I've got to catch as much information as I possibly can. And I am actually wanting to challenge the panel to say, where we're coming from is this particular generation, and you can tell the age by the color of my hair, is that we used to have agriculture as a form of punishment at school. So at school, if you were not performing well, if you were a naughty child, aye, you're for the whole day. So as it is, it was much associated with poverty. It was much associated with a useless kind of an environment. And we were never encouraged to go and study because, again, most of us are coming from parents that were born in homelands. So all that they knew is agriculture, and they were not necessarily working as farmers, but they were working as farm workers, which makes a very big difference. So I want us now to find a way of how do we change the mindset of a black person. I spoke about mindset change yesterday. And I want us to do the same thing, because you are sitting, if you're looking at this kind of a hall and you're calling your graduates, young people that have graduated, chances are out of all of these seats, you would be very lucky if you can come up with 5 children or 5 young people that are studying artisanship in anything, that are doing agriculture, because all those kinds of work, all those kinds of careers have been subdued to become useless, dirty, unattractive, unsexy, and whatever. And this is where our white counterparts are actually making it. I am with the South African Women in Plumbing and Trades. And what I'm also finding fascinating is that we do not have girls that are coming into these industries. And when you're looking at the multi-generational companies, where white people are able to have companies that are being given from one generation to the next, all the artisans-owned companies are actually making it. You were talking about COVID. During the COVID time, it is the same agriculture people that are working in the agriculture space for food and people that were working in the artisan space that did not go hungry, because those skills are needed. You're going to need a plumber. You're going to need an electrician. You're going to need to sit on a chair in one way or the other. So how do we then ensure that the youth of today is actually not coerced, but encouraged to go into these sectors, especially the girls and the young women, so that we can be able to create the jobs, looking at the construction sector as well. These are your job-creating kind of environments. That's one. 2, I need to know, in terms of investment, the one thing that we've been talking about throughout this Africa Investment Summit is issue of access to funding. We have got people that we're trying to put together as farmers in the Free State. The issue of contract farming is very critical, because much as they've got the arable land, much as we're blessed with the 60% of arable land, if that land is not being worked, you go to the Eastern Cape, it's even worse. Free State used to be the basket, food basket of South Africa before 1994. Now you go to those areas, things are so bad. Some of the lands have been given back to the communities through the restitution process. But as soon as that land has been given to the people that were owning it previously, they've got no mechanization, they've got nothing to do. Then they end up having to give it back to the very same people who had taken the land and worked for those people. It's sad. You go to Bronkhorstspruit, you find an area of about 600 hectares being farmed by people that have got contract farming contracts with your McCain. And they produce your potatoes, they produce whatever. As soon as they harvest, they dismantle the irrigation system and they go. And guess what? Out of the 400 hectares that they've planted, they are paying the owners of the land about 80,000 rand, and we're talking about 12 families. So how do we change this narrative? How do we push ourselves? How do we, I know what to go, but we've got to start somewhere, and I'm hoping that's going to be one of the takeoffs out of this investment summit, that we can be able to look at the agriculture space and how do we maximize on the benefits there. Thank you.
Ma, hey, can't we take 50 graduates to Nambu next year and have them sponsored to go and see the biggest grain festival in the world? That's where the people that own, the farmers, they arrive there in private jets, by the way. So it would be good to have us in this room sponsor 50 or how so many young people to go and see the grain industry, the farming industry, how it is. Because they have the grain one early in the year, and then the cows, what do you call, sorry, now in I think it is in the end of November. But they have two big conferences. Yeah, so that's the way to start it, to go and show people that, you know, yeah, that's where you meet the CEO of John Deere and sit with him.
CEO of New Holland, not John Deere.
Greetings, everybody, greetings. Thank you. All observed protocol. I'm just going to be making a question that is maybe a contribution and a concern. My people, I really believe in practicality than, you know, these talk shows. You know what I've observed at most problems are not about implementing and all that and the shortage of money. And the moment we talk money, people, they make voice noises, they start moving around, they want to share the numbers. But people, where is Africa right now when we talk agriculture? What is agriculture in Africa? What is agriculture in South Africa? First thing I will just make is just a practical example. This woman you see here in front of you was no more and is here today wearing a kwai because of agricultural medicine. So I want to talk a testimony and say, let's start change our mentality. When you talk agriculture, we are not just talking about spinach and the cabbage and the beans there in the garden and the livestock, goats and the chickens. Yes, they are good. Yes, they are still good. But what I'm saying, what I have observed on my knowledge is that the very little knowledge, especially for our youth, is a challenge here. Myself, I was from a very deep rural area there by Umsinga, that is most feared by many of African people and South African peoples. You mentioned Umsinga, they will run away from you. Deep rural area, because, and we were only also growing from agricultural gardens out there. However, I'm here today, I'm a leader of big African programs, South African programs, because of agriculture, my people. At a young age, that's when I observed the value of agriculture, and I will order and request and dearly request the young people, don't think grants and bursaries only when we talk agriculture here. At some stage, I got to be like medicinally said to be like I'm having a mental challenge, an epilepsy, and all those things. And I was giving a lot of medicinal, Western medicines that made me even worse. I became to be in a wheelchair. I was physically disabled on top of that mental disability and bipolar. And it took so long for me to observe a reality was not what I was treated for. I was even being made worse through medicinal, Western medicine. When a cannabis medicine cannabis health was introduced at the VAL, I was one of the running people because of I was knowing, coming from those backgrounds of the rural, where they said, it's Dagga, but you were arrested and all that. And I went to VUT with the professors, with the farmers. We sat together, we put a strategy, and we made a proposal. Government allowed us, and we were able to hit COVID-19. COVID-19 was hit with me involved, with the professors of the VUT, with the professors of South Africa, and I won't mention one by one, but I'm mentioning you can follow up. COVID-19 was hit because of cannabis medicinal health, right? And then I became now, as I say, you see, I was in a wheelchair, I went in a crash, now I'm in a kwai. So I'm talking testimony here. That agricultural young girl, that was an embarrassment. So let's finish up and say, people, let's Pakisa, operational Pakisa in Africa, I beg you. And another thing that I will say, when we talk cannabis and hemp or green mining, let's talk, we are talking seed, we are talking so many things. From seed, from cultivation, we're talking agro-processing, we're talking industrialization, we're talking access to export, please.
Thank you. I think there was a question which Dr. will pick up.
Thank you, Chair. I want to respond to my fellow youth and my mother there with the gray hair regarding farmer support in terms of women, and my sister there, which is my fellow, peer, about how to obtain hemp permits. Funny enough, we've got a beautiful government that, sometimes they listen when we talk. And we have the regulation in place in terms of hemp industrialization. It was back then 0.2 low THC, but now we engaged to say, let's lift it to 2% THC, because there's an element of medicine within the flower. We can't grow something that doesn't have medicinal properties, but only industrial. So we were fighting to say we want to commercialize everything within the plant. This plant must give me everything from seed to the roots, not only the flower for smoking. And the department is offering permits at the cost of 780 rand. And the application, even a secondary level learner can complete the application form. It's not like the medical cannabis from SAPRA that is complicated, that need a pharmacist, that need facilities, that need a lot of things. The master grower, you need a pharmacist to dispense the flower, you need a safe in the facility. If you don't have greenhouses, you can't even get the license. Yes, if you don't have electric fence, you can't even you must have at least 1 million rand to start. But with hemp, you just need 50 hectares of land, but you can start from 3 hectares, because in 1 hectare with hemp, you can build a small house like an RDP house that Utata Mandela said, RDP houses that 16 family members can stay in. I'm sorry to say that, but what can we say? So it's easy to get the permit. If you want to get the permit, call me, or you can go to the stand there, get my contacts, or get Kitso's contacts. She will help you. She knows how to assist farmers. And I mentioned at the beginning that I'm a member of African Farmers Association of South Africa. I'm the youth chairperson. My job is to advocate for farmers, to get farmer support, capacity building, and access to markets. And I went beyond in terms of product development and mentoring. I mentored 3,000 young farmers across Africa, and there's evidence. That's why I won Ecosystem Builder of the Year in Africa. And women, at AFASA, we've got the women's structure. My mother here mentioned that, Dr. Vuyo Mahlati, who was the president of AFASA, who made sure that women within the farming fraternity, they get support. And she made an example about the wool processing facility in the Eastern Cape. Free State, I'm tasked to develop the hemp mega project in the Free State, in the Harip. It was going all over TV everywhere the past 3 months. Yeah, so they looked for me until they find me. And then they found me, and we signed contracts to say I'll come and help the Free State. I did one project in the Free State. It was a project that helped the society of black community and the white community. There were kids in Lindley. I think you know Lindley before Senegal. Yeah, in Lindley. Yes, I stayed there for 2 years. My duty to stay there was to fix a political issue. Because the kids from the white community and the kids from the black community were not getting along. And it's only one road that divides, this community. But the solution was to build a playground, a park. I said to them, I'm not gonna make things worse politically, but there's something that is simple where kids can play together. And then a white young person who when goes home will tell the parents that, Letabo or Katleho from that Basotho community is a good person. Because I play with that person in the very same park. So I'm doing quite a number of things. I know, black melanin, black community, we always complain about unnecessary things. And I champion that women, youth, AFASA is alive. It's a member-driven organization. You can join the organization, and then you'll see what Katla will do internally, and then we'll take you by hand, and show you where you can get funding for agriculture. I can take you to Land Bank also, and say, she's looking for this, and this is a concept document. They will listen to us and support you. I can take you to National Department of Agriculture, your Free State Provincial Agriculture Department, and lobby for you. I'm from the Farmers Union, and I'm a young person who makes sure that I leave stones unturned, but in terms of food security. Mama Cindy knows, I was taught well, to say, don't be apologetic about this poverty. It's an elephant. And if you want to take it down, you must be strong and resilient. And that's who I am today. I'm not afraid of changing a black society, my fellow peers, the youth. We want to see more young female farmers in the industry. We want to see more cosmetics coming out from you guys. We are here, make use of us. I want to share, I was supposed to be in France today and tomorrow. Africa Ambience with my mother here. And I rejected the invitation. Why? Because I wanted to share this with my African people. I travel France, I do a lot of things in Africa, I do a lot of things in Germany, in Berlin. I'm going to Berlin in January for the Agricultural Ministerial Forum, where all ministers across the world talk about policy development in agriculture, youth inclusive in agriculture and sustainable food systems. So make use of us, we are here. We are here, don't complain. There's no longer time for complaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Gazel. I'm just gonna let the chair say a few words, but give yourselves a big round of applause. Thank you very much. I'm gonna just say one last thing for AFASA. AFASA is this organization that, when you talk about women involvement, I don't know of any other national associations that have had 2 women presidents. People talk 2 women presidents. Both of them, unfortunately, late, but both of them had PhDs. So, again, it shows you that women can take the lead and actually develop and promote agriculture. Those women did it. Why don't you also do it? Let's look at that. Already, we have a chair. She's going to lead us going forward. Thank you, panelists. I really appreciate
Thank
you.
And Dr. Mzama, please take us through to the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, moderator and my fellow panelists. I think what is important is I was listening to Siskile, also looking at the objectives of youth in agriculture and rural development. When we founded YAD, we were talking about an agriculture system that is sexy. An agriculture system where you're wearing a gumboots, you are not